question is, the company has the outsourcing part for software development, hardware and so on, in order to create cash flow. And the main target is to have our own product, right? So how do you know how much to invest in the outsourcing part in order to create cash flow in order to be enough where you can launch a product? Because that's, I think, it's a balance that it's hard to get.
This is a tough trade-off to make, because you'll have this group of smart people, and it's so tempting to take that sweet consulting money and fund your operations with that. Cash is king, of course. The problem, of course, is the more time you aren't focused on the core product, the less likely it is this core product will get built and find product market fit. This is a great reason to raise a seed round. So I would stop all the consulting, figure out exactly how much you need to really have everyone, all hands on deck, do everything they can to make your product incredible. Take that amount, double it, and raise a seed round based on that story. And if you've got the right team in place and it's a good story and you could potentially get the product market fit, that seed round will get done.
That helps. It is in some ways, but
the bottom line is don't consult. Don't. If you
need the cash. The idea is that you need the cash to develop.
That's why you raise a seed round, right? If you do two things, you'll do neither of them well.
Yes.
Right. Startups need to be 110% focused on the core product. Just my opinion.
And probably also don't mention to the investors that you might consult. Again, for people that joined later, please go on Slido.com, search for Techsylvania 2019 and add the questions there, because it's going to be easier to move along. But in the meantime, yes.
I was curious, how do VCs look at the market sizes in terms of evaluation and due diligence? The startups tend to exaggerate when they try to say which one is the market. So what's the process?
Market sizes are generally well known in the venture world, right? Like food delivery, big market. Transportation, big market. When it gets harder is when you're splicing into a sub-market. Like I'll go back to my company, Clean Shelf. They had this perception early on that they were playing in a small market. So what we had to do was add up what's all the money that every company spends on software. On-prem or SaaS, we don't care, right? Because everything's eventually going to go to SaaS. Then all of a sudden our TAM was enormous. We said, okay, well, how much of that is waste? If 10, 20, 30% of it's waste, here's how much Clean Shelf can make by cutting that waste, right? So if there's any ambiguity about your market size, then you define it and you own that story, right? This is your one opportunity to sort of change reality and say, look, you may have thought SaaS isn't that big and cutting waste wasn't that big of an opportunity, but look how actually big it is. And that actually worked for us.
We have a question on Slido. Do you think in the near future the figure of VC will disappear from the startup ecosystem? Is there a sequel to this figure, in your opinion?
Do I think VC will disappear from the ecosystem? I don't. I think the way venture is allocated and raised will change. Right now, it's a horribly inefficient process. Sandhill venture people feel like they're gatekeepers of the global capital system, and for the most part, they were up until recently. And
Up until SoftBank.
Yeah. Well, SoftBank's left holding the bag right now, unfortunately. Hopefully they look smart after this, but not yet. And that's all later stage, right? SoftBank exists because companies can't go public in New York anymore, right? The banking system's fucked up, securities are fucked up. I think blockchain is going to change how all of this works. I think we're seeing lots of iteration on peer-to-peer funding. These exchanges are now sort of acting as the investment banks with IECs or whatever, ICs. I think this all gets a lot easier. I think the gatekeeper thing on Sand Hill fades away. But here's the thing, VCs at the end of the day, they get paid to do one thing, and that's build the future, fund who's building the future. And we're always going to need capital for that. And there's always the layer, VC serves as this layer between the trillions of dollars of worth, value in the world, and us, guys who are actually trying to build the future. So it's a crowded system. Information is asymmetric. If you talk to a $10 billion family office, I mean, there's a reason they don't invest directly in companies, right? They're just blinded by the complexity of the ecosystem. So VCs filter that for global wealth. So that filtering layer won't go away. I just hope there's more of it, right? Because if it's just 30 assholes on Sand Hill Road, like, life's gonna continue to be a pain in the ass for guys like us.
Okay, any other questions?
Hi, my name is Andrei. I work for Medica, an AI-powered radiology platform. We already raised the seed round. Now we're looking for another round. We already have some investors aligned to the round. My question is, how should we do the valuation of the company in a smart way so that we allow ourselves to raise another round easily and we also maximize the value that we can get into the company right now?
Yeah, this is tricky. This is one of the hardest parts of fundraising, absolutely. So you're trying to balance mitigating dilution for you and your employees by getting a good price, with not going too high so you don't lock yourself into a corner and get a bunch of passes in this round and then a lot of passes in the next round because you got to keep going up. And down rounds are hard. They're very painful. I've been through them. So there's no real exact science to this. Some VCs will have an Excel sheet they plug things into. You may want to go find one of those. It's about comps, TAM, growth rate. So look at other telemedicine companies, use public comps, those can work for you. If they're not working for you, don't mention them. But revenue growth rate is all that matters on Sandhill, at least. If you're 4xing every year, name your price. If you think you can keep doing that for 4 years, you'll be fine. If you plateau, like most people do, they plateau around the Series B, have enough cash in the bank so you don't get killed.
Yeah. That's right. And that's the tricky part with med tech is that you sometimes run into bumps, like big bumps, let's say certification from legal entities that can hold you down or hold you in a plateau.
Regulatory, you got 12-month sales cycles, you've got more regulation than banks have, which is stupid. Healthcare is tough. You got to conserve cash, and it's an argument to keep the valuation low, right? Because keeping a lower valuation keeps the doors open later for follow-on funding.
True. Yeah. Thank you.
In your opinion, what are the differences between Eastern VCs and Western VCs? I'm assuming we're talking about Eastern Europe or Eastern. Who asked the question? Okay, so Eastern Europe investors versus Western Europe or American investors.
So I don't know a lot about this, so I'll keep my answer brief. I know just about everything about American investors. I've dealt with some European VCs. I've dealt with some Chinese, Japanese VCs. The only observation I've seen so far is generally American investors have a massive appetite for risk. The reason is there's so many of them. I looked at becoming a venture capitalist after my last company, and I talked to a lot of my friends in the business. It is the most cutthroat, competitive thing you can do in American finance. It's no fun for most of them, right? So because the asset class is overfunded, there's new $1 billion, $1.5 billion funds every month forming in San Francisco. It's too much money. You can't deploy that much money. You can't possibly write 35, $10 million checks a year. You're fucking crazy if you think you can do that. So what ends up happening is they have to make less but higher concentrated bets. So they're throwing the ball further down the field, and they're doing crazier things, right? That's how did venture get into the food delivery business? Like, in what world is food delivery venture backable? These are overfunded venture capital firms chasing shitty ideas as far into the economy as they can go. So what you end up with is VCs that'll take crazy risks, right? Because if they don't deploy the capital, they don't get their fees, they don't get on to the next fund. So I haven't seen that in Europe. I've not spent much time here, unfortunately, but that's my main general observation.
So basically, if you have the kind of idea that would stick to the type of risk appetite that the US investors might have, probably go raise in the US. If you have a different type of idea, probably focus on a different type of investors.
Yeah, I think this model, I know there's teams in Germany that do this, this model of taking something that works in the US and bringing it here, this geographic arbitrage, I think is really smart. I know the Sandborg brothers have done that well, and others. I think, you know, all the engineering talent in the world is here. I can tell you in San Francisco, we're scraping the barrel. We're overpaying shitty engineers in San Francisco. So there's just massive arbitration and opportunity, and Eastern Europe is so well positioned to take advantage of it.
And when it comes to, so we look at the investors, but when we would look at founders in North America versus founders in Europe or Eastern Europe, what do you think are the differences in the way they approach the raising part?
Yeah, the raising part, I was going to say, I thought you were going to go on the operating part, and I don't see any differences there on the operating side. There are great entrepreneurs and shitty entrepreneurs in all corners of the world. On the raising side, it's clear. And that's why I did this presentation. There's a lot of things I could have talked about, but I felt compelled to give this message. Like, be confident. Don't be intimidated by these assholes just because they make $5 million a year and drive a Tesla and have a nice house in Palo Alto. Fuck them, right? Like, if you have a good idea and you know you're right and you can obviously build it, fuck them. If they say no, move on to the next one, right? Remember, there's more venture money chasing less good ideas every year. So you may not feel like it, but you have the leverage. And the funny thing is, they fucking know that too, right? But you're sitting in their $2,000 per square foot office on Sand Hill, they're gonna intimidate you, right? They play this game 150 times a year, you play it 4 times in your whole life, right? Turn the tables back, be confident, right? That's the most important thing.
That's good.
Thanks. Hi, Ron. I'm Adrian. We're a team here in Bruges which develops a cryptocurrency wallet. Actually, our journey started 12 months ago. We received 2 grants from a blockchain platform which is based in Singapore. And now we would like to shift from a cryptocurrency wallet to a, let's say, portal to blockchain world. Now, what we are facing now is the following challenge. Basically, everything is open source. But yeah, the question is, what would be a better approach to start to close apart from our code, or to use a mix? Because the investors are going to ask for some intellectual property work. So what would be the right approach?
Yeah. So the world's getting even more complicated, isn't it? Now software is free, right? All this like hard-fought intellectual property, that's all open source. Anyone can fork it, anyone can do whatever they want, right? It's a tough climate. It's tough for us. It's even tougher for investors, right? Because these guys aren't the sharpest people in the world. They don't understand. Like we did this seed round for Braintrust, which at a high level is a user-owned global cooperative. Right? It's like, imagine if Gigster or TopTal, instead of being owned by a Delaware C, was just owned by all the people who do the work. Right? It's a very simple concept. And you're like, well, how do you make money? Make the token more valuable. Right? So we'll open source everything. We'll be decentralized. We'll probably be in ERC20. Like, we can't own any of that. But the value of these networks is not the software. It's the people. Right? Like, I bet 5 of us in this room in 48 hours could rebuild Airbnb. Might not look as nice, but it's not that fucking hard, right? A mobile app, a website, back end, done. What's the value of why is Airbnb worth $15 billion? They know where all the renters are. They know where all the houses are. Same with Uber. Same with LinkedIn. Same with Braintrust, right? So the new model, I think, is user and participant-owned networks, not centrally controlled networks owned by 100 people in California, right? So I don't know what your business does, but get users. And provide some kind of value to those users, and then take fees or make a token valuable, right? Like you gotta have appropriate value capture instrument, and then you raise money from investors on the bet that I've done it this way. There's a clear value proposition. We know how to grow. Very straightforward.
Any other questions? While you guys think of the next question. Yeah? You have a question? Oh, there's one here. Okay. Y Combinator or other tech accelerators versus VCs, pros and cons?
Yeah, great question. I think for folks who are from this part of the world, or from any part of the world that's not California, accelerators make sense. They're, it's questionable whether you're going to really learn anything, and what you learn may not be the best information, but you're going to figure out how things work, right? Like, show up in San Mateo, show up in Palo Alto, go do one of these for a month or two, learn, network, go out every night, talk to investors, build your network, right? You're not going to find engineers. All the engineers live here, right? You're not going to find any designers. They all live in other parts of the world. The money's in California, right? So set up shop and build your network of investors. So they're good for that. YC, way too much credit for what it does. It's completely overblown. The program itself is trivial. You could watch probably 10 YouTube videos and learn the same amount of stuff. But the network you'll get, the access you get at demo day, can't find that anywhere else in the world. So it's worth it for that.
How do you find the right VCs for your company? Is there a platform where the company can apply, let's say?
Not really. AngelList would be the closest to this. AngelList is great. Like, definitely have an AngelList profile. Get your team up there. You can raise money through syndicates. That's not the smartest money in the world. It's not that easy either, because the damn things are so small. You need 5 syndicates to usually raise $1 million. It's too much work. But no, there's no formal process for this. This is a relationship business, and that's why I said in the presentation, it's just a numbers game, right? You just have to do it enough times until it's done. That is the only guaranteed way to get it done. And if you have 5 meetings, you're going to get 1 yes. You might get 1 $250K check. You got to do everything times 10.
You were talking about your professional journey. How's the change in the mindset from going from entrepreneur to investor?
Well, I learned, I thought investing was easy. It's not. It's almost as hard as running a company, which is completely different. It's more money chasing fewer returns, like I said before. So, and there's 2 types of, I'm an angel, so very easy to be an angel. You just find somebody you like, it's a cool idea, you write a check, maybe ask your wife if it's okay. If you're running a venture fund, it's incredibly painful. You're dealing with LPs, you're having to explain things to big family offices and big institutions. You're only at bat 6-7 times a year. You gotta hit a grand slam at least once a year. That's really hard. I decided after a couple of years I didn't like it, and I went back to operating. I still have investment vehicles on the side. We have a crypto quant fund. But now it's if you like being creative, if you like going 0 to 1, don't be an investor. It's way too much work. You get bummed out after a while. You'll say no 75 times a month. It's not fun. It doesn't make you feel good.
All right, one last question. Oh, 2. Okay. What are the pros and cons of raising money with a self-built MVP plus idea and no users versus taking longer to acquire users and then trying to raise money? Well, probably should you raise pre-product market fit or wait until you get there?
Yeah, this is a great question. I've done it both ways. When I was younger, I didn't know what venture capital was. I ran businesses that could generate cash. I ran an online shopping website in 2004. We were the only one showing up in SERPs for product search. It was just lucky. We were able to generate cash there. Now, I make a PowerPoint deck. I hone the story, hone the message, get really sharp on that, and then I go out. No code, no engineers, no product. It's about the story, right? So the advantage to that is, and you don't have to have a big track record for this. I've seen young guys do this. Tell a good story, be compelling, don't be wrong, right? Don't not know something, right? Know the blind spots, know the risks, right? If you can tell an investor, here's the risk you're taking, right? Me executing it and freelancers wanting to own a network someday instead of just paying fees to top, right? Those are the risks you're taking. do you think this is an acceptable risk, right? Make it simple for them. If you have an MVP, the investors doesn't care, right? Like the investors take for granted that you can build good software, especially in this part of the world, and you guys clearly do. And if you have, what's worse than if you have users, right? So say you have 1,000 users, so you're gonna get caught up in metrics on 1,000 users, and how hard was it for you to get there, right? So I just think it's easier to tell a story, go raise the money. It's incredibly painful to raise a round, right? So we're very experienced people. It took us 6 weeks doing nothing but pitching, right? A lot of people will take you 3 months. You're not building at that time. So wouldn't you rather just get that money in the bank and then shut it off and go heads down and go build, right? Focus.
You're mentioning that you have an investment in Ljubljana. Do you have any other investments in Europe? Or are you considering?
Yeah, I don't think I do. I haven't been here very many times. I probably have some things in London, but no, I don't really have any other than Ljubljana, and yes, of course I'm open to it. Yeah, absolutely.
But probably the pipeline is not built in such a way that good deals from here come.
I'm back in operator mode, so I'm not out seeking things. I don't answer inbounds anymore. I don't take pitches anymore. So I'm so focused on building a new network. But yeah, I'm opportunistic, right? If I see something cool, I want in.
So let's finish this. I would like to ask you to share with people here in the audience some resources where they could go to learn more, read more about how to raise capital, what are the tips and tricks and things to pay attention to.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm caught a little bit flat-footed. AngelList is great, right? Their community there is great. I know the team in San Francisco that runs it. They care deeply about helping teams like that, like you guys, global teams, right? They're not interested in San Francisco. The second thing is the accelerators, right? I think there's a handful of decent ones. I know that I've heard there's some out here. Do one in California, though. Like if you're going to raise venture capital in a serious way, you have to do one in California. They're all basically the same. YC is the famous one, but they're all kind of the same curriculum. You know, they're going to teach you the same lessons. And then it's about meeting people, right? It's just about networking and building relationships with folks. That's the most important part.
All right. Thanks so much, Adam. Thanks so much, everyone, for attending the session.